Well guys, we just got some crazy news that dropped from a leaker. And now normally I don't like to do videos on leaks, but I actually had planned on doing a video like this later in the few weeks from now. So I guess I'll just include that part of the video into this. So if you haven't heard, there is a crazy leak that has just dropped on the Nintendo Switch that is suggesting that there is one more major game coming to the regular Nintendo Switch, which is quite crazy to hear considering that this system came out March 3rd, 2017. And here we are in 2025 still talking about the regular Nintendo Switch. Not to mention the Switch 2 has literally just been revealed, so you would have thought there was really no more major games coming to the Nintendo Switch. So without further ado, let's dig right into this leak. So this is coming from a Brazilian leaker that has gotten a lot of stuff right in the past. He was on a podcast saying that he had heard that there was one more major Nintendo Switch game to be announced coming from Nintendo. He said it was a niche series and it was something that was not a remake. He said it was a pretty big game, and yeah, that's all he said. That's all we know, which just opens the doors to so many things. What could this final Nintendo Switch game be? And I actually have a theory that this will not be the final Nintendo Switch game. It's gonna be the final, like, somewhat original game. This could be a lot of things. When you think of series like that, you think of something like, I kind of hate saying this, but I guess Star Fox is kind of a series that no one really cares about anymore. It's got kind of a small fan base. I guess F-Zero kinda is like that, although it's continuing to get bigger. And then there's things like, you know, Rhythm Heaven, which Rhythm Heaven was supposed to be done. So I don't know if they would do another Rhythm Heaven. So what could this final game be for the Nintendo Switch? Obviously it's not a remaster, so we can throw the GameCube, the Wii, 3DS ports out the door because that's what the Switch has been getting a lot of recently. But that person didn't throw out the possibility of a remake. So maybe a GameCube game gets remade. We saw that last year with Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, but I don't know. What I am thinking, I could see Rhythm Heaven being a possibility if it's a remake, but I thought they had said that they were done with the Rhythm Heaven series, the producer or creator or whatever. Now, I could be wrong there, but I know that they had the Mega Mix that came out on the 3DS, I think 2018, 19, somewhere around there, and it was a digital only game and it sold horrible. Could we see that repeat itself where we get a final Rhythm Heaven game and it's like a remake of the first one? Because I know that's what the Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix was. Maybe they do that for the Switch. I don't know. I don't know. I could see, something is telling me that Rhythm Heaven is weirdly enough a strong possibility, but when I'm thinking it's going to be, it's Fire Emblem. Listen, Fire Emblem has been rumored for the last like 3 years that there was a remake in the works, and I feel like this Fire Emblem remake kind of makes sense to be the final original game from Nintendo, like big release. Now, I don't know. This could be a multitude of things, but I am thinking it's going to be either a Fire Emblem remake or a Rhythm Heaven remake / new game. I don't know other than that. But the main point of this video that I wanted to get across is that the Switch is still going to be supported after the Switch 2 comes out. Now, I know a lot of you are like, what do you mean? How is Nintendo gonna support the regular Switch? There's no way they would do that. Actually, there is a pretty good chance that they're going to be doing this. I wanna go back in time for a little bit. Let's go back to the era of 2017. March 3rd specifically. The Nintendo Switch had just came out finally after months of people waiting. Games were coming out left and right for it. Weirdly enough though, Nintendo was still making games for the Nintendo 3DS. Why would they be doing stuff for the 3DS? That's like a portable, it's not even a console, it's a handheld. The Switch is basically that. It's a handheld, it can be a home console, it's a hybrid gaming thing. Why would Nintendo still be releasing games on the Nintendo 3DS? And they were throwing the 3DS at like every Nintendo Direct possibly. So I want to say maybe it was April 2018. That might have been the last time we saw the 3DS mentioned on a Nintendo Direct. And Nintendo was coming out with banger after banger. It was Meteoroid Samus Returns. Yeah, that was one that everyone was upset that came to the 3DS exclusively and not the Switch. You saw a lot of like the Mario and Luigi games be brought over to the 3DS. You saw things like Kirby Epic Yarn, Luigi's Mansion. You saw the 3DS still get supported for so long. And what I'm thinking Nintendo is going to be doing is they're going to do the same thing with the Switch. And here is why. I will tell you why the 3DS still got support after all those years of the Switch coming out. The 3DS sold like crazy. I don't know the units off the top of my head. We're going to show it right now, but the 3DS had a lot of customers. It would be stupid for Nintendo to just throw that away. So 3DS was still supported for an extra 2 years after the Switch came out with first-party games, because the system had such a huge player base that they could still make games for this and it sell well, which is exactly what happened until games started to not do well, and then Nintendo just cut it off at the 2019. I bring this up because the Nintendo Switch, one, has a very similar thing. The player base is probably going to end up being the biggest home console ever sold, because it is so close to beating PlayStation 2 that there's a good possibility that there's going to be like 160 million units sold. I think the Nintendo company is going to be still making games for the Switch for an extra 2 years, because Nintendo themselves said that they were going to support the Switch for 10 years. And the type of games that I'm expecting we're going to see is kind of how the 3DS was. After Meteoroid, you didn't really get any more original 3DS games. You had a bunch of remasters. And what I think the Switch is going to be for the rest of this year, next year, going into another year, is just a bunch of remasters of GameCube, Wii, 3DS, that type of stuff. Because we've seen them do this before with the 3DS. And I think we're gonna see that be recycled as we go into the Nintendo Switch 2. Not to mention, this benefits the Switch 2 players. Nintendo can advertise that this game's coming to the Switch, and it's a remaster that will run better on the Switch 2. I don't think any more original games will come to the Switch after this. Obviously, there's Meteoroid Prime 4, there's Pokemon Legends ZA, but I think they're gonna advertise that those games run better on the Switch 2, and I think Meteoroid Prime 4 is gonna end up being a cross-gen game, in my opinion. Now, y'all might be asking me, what type of games could we expect to see for the Switch if this ends up happening? Well, I got a nice list of games to speculate that could come to the Switch once the Switch 2 happens. Now, like I said, I think this is only gonna happen for 2 years, and you'll probably see Nintendo bring out a game for the Switch 1, I don't know, maybe every 3 to 4 months, somewhere around there, because that's kind of how the 3DS was once the Switch came out. And Nintendo will slowly stop supporting the Switch, less games, that type of stuff. So obviously, I feel like the one that would make the most sense as Nintendo continues to be going through the past of the GameCube for the Switch is bringing F-Zero GX. I think that is the perfect game to be brought over for the Switch, and especially if they throw online multiplayer, imagine playing that with Switch players and Switch 2 players. I think that's the perfect game that doesn't take them much effort to remaster, because that's probably all we're going to be getting is just solid remaster games with the $60 price tag, kind of like Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. You're going to expect that type of treatment with stuff like F-Zero GX, in my opinion. And I think that's the perfect game to be released towards the end of the Switch cycle as we go into that next Switch system. I think that's the perfect game to try out there. You know, if we look at the Wii U, there's still 2 major games that never got brought over to the system that we all thought for sure was going to happen. Zelda Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. I wouldn't think that this would take much effort to be brought over to the Switch, and these would obviously be big system sellers for both the Switch and the Switch 2. Imagine this comes out as we're, you know, a few months in the Switch 2, and then boom, you get Zelda HD, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, one pack, all in one cartridge. That's gonna do so well for the Switch and Switch 2. It just makes sense to have that. I'm surprised we never got those games onto the regular Switch yet. I thought for sure we would have saw that for the Zelda anniversary. But I think now is the time, because Nintendo is gonna be running out of remasters. They might wanna save some of these remasters as remakes for the Switch 2 down the road. Now, this one has already been reported to be coming to the Switch at some point by Nate the Hate, who is at this point a very credible leaker. I mean, he got all the Switch 2 stuff right. but he is saying that Kirby Planet Robobot is going to be coming to the Switch at some point. And honestly, that one kind of makes sense. The 3DS port, for whatever reason, the Switch is getting so many Kirby games. Kind of makes sense that Nintendo is doing that game. So yeah, Planet Robobot, it could be coming out this year. Who knows? But announcement is probably happening in the next few weeks with that game. There's another thing that has mysteriously not come out for the Switch yet, and that's the rest of the Meteoroid games. We got Prime 1, but where's Prime 2 and 3? You would have thought that they were putting those on the Switch. It just made sense. It felt like how Meteoroid Prime was released, that 2 and 3 was coming at some point, and here we are. Still nothing. And that's also kind of like the perfect thing to release on both systems if this is how Nintendo is going to be handling both systems as we go through the next few years. This one I also feel pretty confident is happening at some point, considering that it seems that Nintendo is starting to re-release the stuff that happened to get ported on the 3DS, and that is Luigi's Mansion. Obviously the Switch has 2 and 3, but where is 1? We saw Nintendo just re-release Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Switch, which was actually the 3DS port, and I feel like what Nintendo is going to do is re-release the Luigi's Mansion port that came out on 3DS for the Switch with HD visuals. I think this is definitely going to happen at some point. I remember when that got announced for the 3DS, everyone was upset that that wasn't a Switch type. Another one that, to be honest with you, I don't think is happening. I thought it was going to happen at some point a few years ago, and there's a possibility that it might have ended up being this, but maybe it could happen now. Kid Icarus Uprising. Now, Kid Icarus Uprising is probably the most requested game to come to the Switch in terms of remasters or even a remake, HD visuals, that type of stuff. However, I think Kid Icarus Uprising is a bigger project for Nintendo that they're not going to want to put in the money for. Kid Icarus Uprising, its controls are very unique. I didn't think they were that bad that people make it out to be, but I mean, I got it through easy. I thought it was, I'm not going to say it was easy, but I didn't have any issue with it. But a lot of people had issues with those controls, and there's going to have to be a lot of workarounds. And I think that's just going to take more time than they want to put into this stuff, because a lot of their HD remasters, there's not a lot of effort put into it, and it's kind of noticeable. Now, I know that Bandai Namco was rumored to be working on a few Nintendo remasters a few years ago, but those rumors are now suggesting that those ended up being canceled projects. I always thought that Kid Icarus Uprising was one of those titles that they were working on, but we'll never know. And this one I kind of feel like is impossible, but if they wanted to be stupid, which Nintendo has been stupid before, they could try to bring a new Star Fox game in terms of remastering Zero. I feel like I could see Nintendo doing that. They bring Star Fox Zero to the Switch, but if they were to bring a new Star Fox game, I hope that it is Star Fox Assault. I feel like that is the perfect game to come to the Switch. I also thought that was one of the games that Bandai Namco was working on, but we'll never know. I know it's also reported that Custom Robo was one of those games. Maybe Custom Robo ends up happening, but I don't know. I'm still kind of thinking that that's kind of unlikely. A lot more effort has to go towards those things. So, and obviously there could be more 3DS and Wii ports. Don't really know what's left from the Wii that they could do that will be easy. Punch-Out? But do they care about Punch-Out? It's been reported that Nintendo does not care about Punch-Out, so I don't know if they want to do that, and that's probably more effort than they want to do. You know, the Wii doesn't have the strongest library, in my opinion, when it comes to Nintendo, and I feel like we kind of already have everything that needs to come from the Wii over to the Switch, but I could be wrong here. Y'all can leave some suggestions, but there's like, what, like 8 games that Nintendo made for the Wii? How much is left for them to put on the Switch? And the 3DS, I mean, there's plenty of stuff they can still bring from the 3DS. Tomodachi Life, but, you know, actually, that's a good possibility. They brought Miitopia. Why did they bring that? I don't know. I feel like Tomodachi Life kind of a possibility. And there's probably more 3DS titles that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. Now guys, this is where you come in. What titles do you want to see come to the Switch? Now, I still think the Switch is definitely being supported. I mean, Nintendo themselves have said that the Switch is going to last for 10 years. And if history repeats itself, which it more than likely is, They supported the 3DS longer and brought more games for it, even when the Switch came out. It makes sense for Nintendo to want to do the cross-gen support because that's what PlayStation and Xbox did for the first 2 years of those systems. And I feel like Nintendo is going to repeat that, but do it in a unique way where they're making like new remastered games, where it doesn't feel like Switch 2 players are missing out on like the true experience, if that makes sense. These remastered games make the most sense for to be cross-gen type. Want to hear what you guys are thinking about this? Let me know all that in the comments down below. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me games you want to see be a cross-gen experience. I think Switch 2 players are really going to benefit off this. Some people might be upset, but when they start to realize it's just remastered games that Nintendo's doing, I don't think they're gonna be as upset because at the end of the day, everyone wins. And the Switch 2 will have the better version of it. So I don't see this as an L. I see this as more games coming to the both systems. I think this is exciting, especially if it's remastered games people are wanting. I think this is exciting, but if you guys aren't happy about it, feel free to leave it in the comments. Guys, I have been talking for way too much. Make sure to backslash that subscribe button, like the video, check out the Twitter, check out the Discord, check out the Instagram, P.O. Box, become a Monado Marine. Tremendously helps out the channel right now. I can't talk about what's going on, but if you guys want to, it's greatly appreciated. Whatever else is in the description, check it out. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace. To those that have still made it this far, I could use a lot of luck, prayers, all that stuff if you're watching this the day that this video came out. Because, well, the day that this video comes out, it is Judgment Day for me. That's all I can say. Oof, wish me luck, guys. Got a butter knife in a knife fight right now. That's what's happening. I got sent a butter knife to a knife fight. Here we go.